There it is. He timed it right.
Counting to explode with the left. Oh, and that right, but Davis took off some of the steam of the punch, but still.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, a recent excerpt from Stylist magazine detailing the boxing journey of young Shannon Ryan when Shannon was 5. She never imagined she'd one day become a pro boxer. Starting out in kickboxing and taekwondo from a young age, she explored a range of martial arts before finding her footing in sport karate. But like many aspiring young athletes, she realized there was only so far she could go with it. After becoming a member of the Team GB Taekwondo squad at 19, Ryan returned to kickboxing before discovering her passion for boxing at Finchley and District Amateur Boxing Club at age 23. There, she built an impressive amateur boxing record, competing in 10 fights and collecting titles including the 2018 Alliance Boxing Championship and the 2019 Women's Winter Box Cup. She had finally found the sport that she wanted to build on. Now, a professional boxer with multiple titles to her name, Ryan reflects on her unconventional way into the sport, speaking to Stylist. She opened up about overcoming imposter syndrome and her biggest achievement so far. She is yet to box for a world title, but she's on the cusp of doing that now, a top-rated fighter with all 4 of the alphabet organizations currently. She is ranked number 1 with the IBF, number 1 also with the WBO, number 3 with the WBC, and number 7 with the WBA. And this is all in the women's super flyweight division, one of the deepest divisions in all of women's boxing, where there are no world titles of opportunity, no vacant titles lying around. To be a champion, you have to beat a champion, and the champions there, all 4 of them, are very good. So what is the most viable route for Shannon to not only fight for a title, but actually win one? I would say it's gotta be either the IBF route or the WBA route. The reason for it, Irma Garcia, the IBF champion who's coming off that big win over a then unbeaten Emma Doolin, successfully defending her IBF title against the noticeably younger and taller fighter Emma Doolin, who would serve as a common opponent between both Shannon Ryan and Irma Garcia, where Shannon suffered her first professional loss to Emma. Irma sent her home packing. So how could Shannon Ryan beat the woman that beat her? Well, it's because triangle theories don't work in the sport of boxing. It's styles, after all, that make fights. Emma Doolin is very capable at long distance, at long range, but if you can crash the pocket and get close to her, you can do damage, like Irma Garcia did, beating Emma within close quarters. But I don't think she'd have that same luck with Shannon. Shannon Bryan is a close quarters fighter too, who's getting noticeably better fight by fight and stronger. And thus, if Irma Garcia were to crash the pocket, try to bang it out on the inside with Shannon like she did with Emma, she might find that Shannon actually favors fighting in the pocket. She's comfortable there, more comfortable than Emma. Well, then how was it that Emma beat her? I think it's important to note that when Emma Doolin beat Shannon Bryan, it wasn't necessarily a whitewash. It was a competitive fight that Emma Doolin really won by a hair, off of a knockdown that shouldn't have been ruled a knockdown since it was due to a rabbit punch, a punch behind the head. That decided the outcome. And the styles of the fighters, Shannon did struggle to get within striking distance of Emma Doolin because Emma is so tall and so long, whereas Irma is more moderately sized. Thus, if Irma were to charge at Shannon Bryan the same way she just did Emma, Shannon can deal. She can fight on the inside. She's comfortable there. Very good, very strong, very fast. I think this is one of the more winnable fights for Shannon Ryan against the champion in the super flyweight division. The other would have to be against newly minted WBA champion Natalie Delgado. Natalie, who just defeated undefeated Jasmine Artiga and lifted the black and gold title from her. Natalie Delgado has already been beat several times. She's got 7 losses and 2 draws. That Shannon Ryan beating her for the WBA title is not far-fetched at all, though I get the impression that young Shannon is going the IBF route. She could always change lanes, fight for the WBA. The point being, Shannon has more than one route to an alphabet title, and the most viable routes, in my opinion, are the IBF route and the WBA route.
Matchroom.
Now, to my knowledge, Shannon is still promoted by Matchroom, but Matchroom recently inked a partnership with MVP, a strategic one that would allow their female fighters to fight on MVP shows. The most recent signing was Skye Mikaelian.
Here's Johnny.
There could be more announcements incoming just like that one, detailing Matchroom's Valkyries migrating over to MVP. Now, could Shannon Ryan be one of those Valkyries? It's entirely possible. Matchroom doesn't actually have that many female fighters left. If the ones they have migrate over to MVP, that's not co-promotion. Not in my opinion. That would just be Matchroom withdrawing from the women's game and pawning what fighters they have left on somebody else.
How can you put a champion from a different, who is currently also a champion in a different weight class, has the other titles in the weight class they announced him to be mandatory? How is that possible?
Yeah, you don't see that very often. It's happened maybe like...
I never saw it before in my life. So I was surprised. And then they said, oh, if Noel's fighting Jai, then he gets stripped. I'm like, wait, I don't understand that. That's the fight to make, and why would I get stripped? I had a voluntary defense. They gave me a voluntary defense, and it didn't happen till now, not because of my power. It was because of my promoter and outside circumstances with the issues I just mentioned with my promoter. So.
He feels like his fight was blockaded because usually if you're a champion of another sanctioning body, you don't get ranked as a mandatory for like a WBC. If you're a WBA, WBO champion, you don't get ranked anymore for the WBC.
He was ranked because he lost the title.
But I meant that in regards to Benavidez getting mandated as the challenger for the WBC, when usually the rules are if you're a champion in another sanctioning body, you're not in the rankings any longer for another sanctioning body.
I'm a little bit confused, sorry.
So Benavidez being the WBA, WBO Cruiserweight champion.
Yes.
I think his team is upset because...
But he's a WBC light heavyweight champion still.
Right.
So that's a big difference. That's why he was mandated. Mikaelian is the WBC champion, so he's doing the mandatory of the WBC against Benavidez. So we're not putting...
so because of his status at light heavyweight, he was able to get mandated at cruiserweight.
Yes, and in order to be a mandatory contender in the WBC, you have to fight a final elimination or to go through a process of a voting to be placed as a mandatory contender. So the mandate of Benavidez is completely within the rules.
Yeah, because you guys make up those rules as you go along, so simply citing them doesn't provide clarity. That you quite hurriedly ordered Noel Mikaelian to fight David Benavidez upon hearing he was about to fight Jai Opetaia, when, if it really were about satisfying a mandatory, why didn't you order Noel to fight Mikaelian, who had already been there at cruiserweight for some time before David even set foot in that division, who you installed as your interim champion as of June of last year, where David doesn't even fight as a cruiserweight until May of this one? If it were about satisfying mandatories and taking care of that. It has now been a year since Mikaelian was installed as interim champion. And you're gonna say, well, being interim champion doesn't necessarily make you the mandatory. Then what the fuck is that for? If it's not a direct path to fight for the full title, and it provides no guarantee, no assurance that you will, then what the fuck is it for? What is the function of the interim champion? In theory, it's supposed to be the fighter who acts as champion in the interim, while the full champion is doing something else. He's busy, he's injured, he can't fight. None of that applies to Noel. Enough with the rhetorical questions. We all really know why the WBC did what they did. They wanted to block Jai Opetaia from fighting for their belt, because they would prefer that David hold it. That's what it was, plain as day. No need to overthink it. They wanted to make it easy for David to pick up their title, just like they did at light heavyweight, emailing one to him when they knew Dimitri was busy. That's when they chose to order that fight, and when they chose to order this one, they knew that Noel Mikaelian was in the midst of finalizing a fight with Jai Opetaia, so to stop him, they came up with this mandate. Now, in Noel Mikaelian's estimation, the fight with Jai Opetaia is the Cruiserweight division's true championship. Noel Mikaelian views his September 12th fight against Jai Opetaia as a meeting between Cruiserweight's two genuine champions. One half of that statement is easy to accept. The other still needs to be proven. Opetaia has proven himself as the division's leading fighter through 2 victories over Benavidez and his subsequent run at the top. Mikaelian owns the WBC title, but possessing a belt doesn't necessarily prove he is the second best cruiserweight.
Maybe not. But there's no debating that since David Benavidez arrived in this division, there's been an active effort to devalue both the Ring Magazine title and Lineal's status, both of which predate these alphabet organizations.
Jai is the legitimate IBF champion, and I'm the legitimate WBC champion, so it's the 2 real cruiserweight champions colliding, Mikaelian said to The Ring. Opetaia no longer holds the IBF title, but Mikaelian's larger argument is clear. He sees himself alongside the Aussie at the top of the division rather than among the fighters trying to establish themselves beneath him. That hierarchy hasn't been settled. David Benavidez has inserted himself into the conversation after moving up in weight to win the WBA and WBO titles, but his position relative to the other leading cruisers remains uncertain. The same applies to Mikaelian. His WBC championship gives him credibility, but it doesn't establish him as Opetaia's closest rival.
Maybe not, but at least he's willing to fight him, which is more than we can say for David.
It's very obvious what the plan for David is. Pursue all the alphabet titles without going after the Ring Magazine and Lineal title. Pretend that Jai isn't the man to beat.
That's what they're doing.
Noel Mikaelian believes that his history with Benavidez strengthens his case. When Opetaia's accomplishments against the former champion were mentioned, during the interview, he quickly brought up their 2018 fight. "I beat Benavidez too, though," Mikaelian said. Mikaelian officially lost that fight by UD, although he has long maintained that he deserved the win. September 12th gives him something far more useful than arguing about an 8-year-old verdict. If Mikaelian beats Opetaia, he won't need a belt or the Benavidez fight to support his case. Opetaia has already proven where he belongs at cruiser, but Mikaelian still has to do it.
Ring Magazine and Lineal status is much harder to come by than a mere alphabet title, because an alphabet title can be emailed to you. You can be elevated to WBC champion, but you can't be elevated to Ring Magazine and Lineal. You have to beat the man in order to be the man, going back to boxing's roots.
And Jai Opetaia was already the man at this weight long before David set foot here, so for him to now get preferential treatment, it's all about protecting him. Protecting David, who now says that he's going to be back in the ring soon. In spite of being stood up by Noel Mikaelian, the feeling is that he's about to fight the interim champion, Mikaelian, to which Anthony Gurges, Noel Mikaelian's manager, responded by soon, he means December, because he refused to fight Noel in September or October and is refusing to fight the winner of our fight, Noel and Jai, in December.
Of course he is. Because most people think the winner's gonna be Jai, and David doesn't want to fight Jai. All this is a set of mental gymnastics to get out of fighting this division's Lineal Ring Magazine champion. That's what it's all about.
All of these detours and alternatives trying to become undisputed without Ring Magazine and Lineal status? It's all bullshit. And the reason I prefer that Opetaia get Mikaelian over David is because with Opetaia, it doesn't cost me or you anything extra. We get to watch it on Paramount Plus, no pay-per-view. Whereas with David, he would have you believe you ought to kick out $75, $80 to see him fight that guy?
And in December, they're in holiday season.
The WBC can go ahead and gift wrap that WBC title and send it to David post-haste. It's not going to make the fight he has any more appealing. It's not going to sell any pay-per-views. Him versus CS ain't box office.
The Mikaelian fight wasn't either.
David don't belong on pay-per-view. He never did. And they've been trying so hard for so long to force it.
If you can't sell upwards of 300,000 pay-per-views, you don't belong there.
And it's because it isn't worth putting up a paywall for anything less than that. Let me make a long story short for you guys that it's not better for the division or better for boxing if David Benavidez is allowed to circumvent what is the best fight in the division. It's not better for boxing if he's awarded alphabet titles.
Email him as many as you like. That's not going to make people buy his fights.
And it's not better for the status quo of this industry if he is allowed to regularly do this, which he has.
It's about time they started holding his feet to the fire. It's about time that he lived up to the hype that surrounds him.
It's about time. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, David Adilier is expected to sign with Zuffa after willfully leaving Queensberry. Adilier could be an opponent for Johnny Fisher,
who's already signed to Zuffa,
for next month, or the pair could meet further down the line. It's not only David Adilier who's rumored to be migrating over to Zuffa from Queensberry. Solomon Dakers is also rumored to be going over there, claiming that he's got fight news pending. Fight news incoming.
And so now you're getting a better idea why Ben Shalom of Boxer is shitting bricks and getting angry that Zuffa has entered the UK boxing space and they are stockpiling fighters, familiar faces that perhaps would have otherwise went into business with Boxer after entering free agency.
Seems that a horde of them are migrating over to Zuffa upon entering free agency because right now Zuffa's paying the best money. By overpaying, which doesn't make for a soluble business in the long run, but you've got to get while the getting is good. And so they're doing that. Should we be worried?
No, we shouldn't know, but the other promoters.
Eddie, Frank, and Ben, I don't necessarily think they need to sit at the foot of their bed biting their toenails that Zuffa's picked up Johnny Fisher, Solomon Dakers, and potentially David Adilier.
As these are not the kind of fighters that can go all the way, and that is established. These are not the kind of fighters that you can really build a promotion around. These are very good area-level fighters to do small shows in the UK.
Small shows like the ones Ben does.
So after about 7 or 8 months since Zuffa's launch, Dana White and the people at Zuffa are now realizing just how fertile the UK boxing scene is. No, these are not all world-level fighters.
Many of them won't get there, but that doesn't mean you can't sell some tickets and make some money in the interim.
They just did a show in Ireland this past weekend. They're planning on doing even more shows in the UK, broadcasted on Sky, who used to be Ben Shalom's broadcast partner.
I don't necessarily think it's cause for concern that Zuffa's stockpiling B, C, and D tier fighters like these. Not to Eddie, not to Frank. Zuffa still doesn't have their eye for identifying talent and properly developing it into not just world-level fighters, but legitimate draws. All they can do is go behind them and pick up what are the remnants of their stable to try to sort of rebuild it on their own soil.
Jai Opetaia, Edgar Berlanga, Richardson Hitchens, these were big acquisitions for Zuffa, where for Matchroom, they were castaways. Guys they didn't want anymore.
While it's possible that David Adilier and Solomon Dakers would have continued to box on Queensberry shows if not for this, I don't think George and Frank Warren are crying in the bathtub,
crying in the corner. They no longer get to use those fighters because there is plenty more where that came from.
Zuffa has a lot of resources, just like the United States did against the Viet Cong. But in the end, who won?
And why did they win?
In spite of all of their battle experience and resources, the United States lost to the Viet Cong because they didn't know that terrain better than the Viet Cong. And the same applies here. You can go behind Matchroom and Queensberry and pick up the fighters they don't want to replicate what they've done. But you don't know this industry better than they do.
You don't know British boxing better than they do.